Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about the brevity of life, as discussed by the ancient Roman philosopher Seneca. In essence, Seneca's message is that if we are constantly caught up in work, trivial tasks, or lead a life of idleness, our lives become incredibly short and fragile. Eventually, this will lead to regret and suffering, so he advises us to be mindful of this. Even in ancient Rome, people lamented how quickly the days passed, how swiftly the years went by, and how they regretted the time they had wasted in their lives, much like we do in the modern world. Amidst all this, Seneca argued that we should think more carefully about how we use our time. He believed that with the right choices, life could be made longer and more fulfilling. Even if you don't usually read classical works, I hope to make this discussion enjoyable by providing some historical context and insights into Seneca's life. So, let's get started. Seneca on the shortness of life. Now, first, take a look at this painting. It's a very famous artwork, but do you recognize it? Seneca is right there in the center. Yes, the old man in the middle is Seneca. However, you might be wondering what exactly he's doing. He's sitting in a barrel, surrounded by several men, nearly naked. If you know the title of this painting, you might have a clue, but I'll reveal it later in the video. Please think about it while you listen to the story. To fully appreciate this video, let's start with some historical context. First, who was Seneca? He was a politician and a prominent Stoic philosopher who lived in ancient Rome around 2,000 years ago. The Stoic philosophy, from which we get the word Stoic, is characterized by its emphasis on self-discipline and self-control. Seneca was born into a wealthy knightly family in the place where Spain is now located. He moved to Rome during his youth, where he studied philosophy and eventually became a finance minister in his 30s, entering the world of politics. In a way, he followed the typical path of a rich upbringing, diligent study, and becoming a bureaucrat. However, Seneca's life wasn't as smooth as it may seem. He excelled in oratory and was nearly killed by jealous rivals within the Roman imperial court due to his exceptional public speaking skills. He was also involved in court conspiracies and was exiled to the island of Corsica. Exile, or banishment, was considered a punishment as severe as death, as it stripped individuals of their social status. Yet, even in exile, Seneca remained dedicated to his intellectual pursuits and writing, making the most of his time. After nearly 8 years on the island, for reasons unknown, he was suddenly released from this harsh punishment and summoned to return to Rome by a prominent figure in the Roman government. Confused about the sudden turn of events, Seneca returned to Rome only to find Roman Empress Agrippina waiting for him. She told him, "Your life on Corsica was undoubtedly challenging. Now, I'll be straightforward. I want you to take charge of my son's education. Can you do it?" Seneca was initially cautious, wondering if there was an ulterior motive behind her request. However, Empress Agrippina revealed the truth. She explained that she aspired to make her son the future emperor, but her son was born from her previous marriage, meaning he had no blood relation to the current emperor. If things continued as they were, the emperor would likely choose his own biological child as the heir, leaving her son without a future. Empress Agrippina desperately wanted to secure her child's place on the throne and believed that Seneca's wisdom and influence were essential. She implored Seneca to assist her in this endeavor. Reluctantly, Seneca accepted the responsibility of educating the young boy. At the time, Seneca was 49 years old. He had initially planned to immerse himself in the world of philosophy and enjoy his later years, rather than take on such a burdensome role for political gain. Despite his desires, he found himself burdened with this heavy responsibility for political reasons, robbing him of precious time. It was during this stressful period that Seneca wrote the essay on the shortness of life that I will introduce today. And so, Thanks to Seneca's education and Agrippina's scheming, this young boy ascended to the position of the fifth emperor of the Roman Empire at the tender age of 16. This would be the infamous Emperor Nero, who would later be etched into history as a tyrant. He's a notorious emperor who always appears in school textbooks. By the way, Seneca, who was in charge of his education, effectively rose to the top of the political hierarchy, becoming a consul and assuming the role of Nero's advisor. Even after Nero's ascension to the throne, Seneca continued to utilize his exceptional abilities to support his young sovereign. Thanks to this, in the initial years of his reign, Nero displayed exceptional political leadership as the emperor of the Roman Empire. As a result, he is said to have built a remarkable intellect that rivaled even the great Emperor Trajan, who expanded the Roman Empire's territories to their maximum extent. However, around 5 years into his reign, Nero's behavior took a strange turn, and he transformed into an uncontrollable psychopath monster. He reportedly took the lives of his wife and mother, set fire to Rome according to some accounts, blamed Christians for it, and carried out a brutal persecution, among other acts of extreme cruelty. Seneca eventually distanced himself from Emperor Nero and effectively retired from the world of politics. It was only then that he began to immerse himself in the philosophy he had always desired to pursue. Now, after hearing this story, can you roughly imagine the kind of person Seneca was in the era in which he lived? Next, I'd like to talk about Seneca's letter on the shortness of life, which he wrote to a man named Paulinus. At the time, the Roman Empire had a system of importing wheat and distributing it to the citizens free of charge, as self-sufficiency was challenging. In other words, it was like a national project similar to a wheat-based universal basic income. Paulinus was an official responsible for overseeing the grain supply in Rome and was an important figure. It seems that in his letter, Seneca advised him to take it easy, retire, and pursue his passions because he was working too hard. You might say, wait a minute, Seneca himself had a really busy life, but there's also a theory that Seneca wrote this letter not just to Paulinus but as a reminder to himself. Many people say things like this: why is life so short? Time flies by in the blink of an eye, and before you know it, it's game over. In fact, even wise men like the father of medicine, Hippocrates, and the philosopher Aristotle were no exceptions. They all lamented the swiftness of time and the brevity of life. I, for one, cannot comprehend why people complain about the laws of nature. After all, life is not short. Each of us is given an ample amount of time to achieve great things. To consider it short is nothing more than wasting time. For example, even a vast fortune would quickly disappear if it falls into the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use money wisely. Life's time is no different. Using it wisely can transform it into a life with plenty of leisure. However, many people are trapped by endless desires and the need for validation from others, wasting their time by trying to please others. Imagine this: if your property and possessions were unjustly encroached upon by someone else, what would you do? You would likely resist and fiercely protect it, even resorting to using weapons if necessary. Because you wouldn't willingly hand over what belongs to you to someone else. So, why do people easily give away their time, their precious asset, to others? Even those who claim not to waste money will squander time without hesitation. It's a strange paradox that despite both being valuable assets, people treat them so differently. In essence, just as squandering land or money will eventually lead to poverty, squandering the time of your life will shorten it. This is common sense. The wastage here refers to indulging in desires, being constantly busy with work, living in idleness, and exhausting oneself worrying about others' opinions, among other things. By the way, Seneca is said to have negotiated his retirement with Emperor Nero, offering to donate all his assets to the state as part of the deal. Seneca's message of not giving away your time as a possession can also be inferred from his own courageous actions. Take a moment to reflect on how much of your life you've spent for your own sake and how much has been taken from you by others. Do you realize that you might already be on the verge of death before reaching your natural lifespan? So why do many people end up in such a state? It's because they mistakenly believe they can live forever. That's why they don't even care how much of their time is wasted. People often say they'll quit their current job at 50 or be free from work at 60, but where's the guarantee that you'll live long? It's too late to pursue what you want when the end is near. Planning carefully and taking action before old age is a wise choice, don't you think? In plain terms, whether you have land and money or not, if you keep wasting your life's time, it will naturally become shorter. And here's where Seneca's message about wasting time comes in: indulging in desires, being excessively busy, living in idleness, and constantly worrying about others' opinions are forms of wasting time. Seneca's philosophy can be divided into two main aspects regarding time, as experts note. First, don't waste time. This is evident from the idea that time is a valuable asset. Second, don't waste your youth. Seneca advised against postponing what you want to do until your 50s or 60s, emphasizing that life is uncertain and you should save time, especially in your youth, and use it for meaningful purposes. Let's continue with the text. Life can be divided into three phases: the past, the present, and the future. The present passes in an instant, and the future is uncertain and unpredictable. On the other hand, the past is an unchangeable and special time. But how do many people treat this special past? They behave as if it doesn't exist, mainly due to the lack of time to reflect on it and the desire to avoid unpleasant memories. People who have shown arrogance, engaged in unlawful actions, or wasted time excessively tend to find the past terrifying, so they avoid looking back. However, the past is the only time we possess that isn't controlled by fate. It's a sacred time where worries like desires, anxieties, and illnesses don't bother us. It's a time free from disruptions or the fear of being taken away by someone else. The past is our property in its entirety, unlike the fleeting present, and we can extract and reflect upon it at our leisure. Unfortunately, many busy individuals cannot afford this luxury. A life without the opportunity to reflect on the past quickly passes, disappearing into the darkness, like pouring water into a container with a hole that is never satisfied. Regardless of the time given, the present time is incredibly short, too short for people to even notice time flowing away. It's unstable, fluid, and constantly replaced by the past and future. Just like how the stars in the sky never stop moving, time also flows endlessly, and no one is allowed to halt it. Nevertheless, busy people only focus on this short, ungraspable present. No, they are so engrossed in their distractions that they even lose the present. However, those who distance themselves from this busy world and use time for themselves can achieve a longer and more fulfilling life. Therefore, regardless of when your last day arrives, you can confidently approach death with a firm step. The idea that people feel life is short because they don't reflect on the past is fascinating. By the way, Seneca's philosophy belongs to the Stoic school of thought, which emphasizes self-reflection and inner virtue. Now, let's continue with the text. I believe that those who allocate time to philosophy are the ones truly living. Not only do they protect their own time and lives, but they also accumulate past time. Great philosophers build sublime philosophical systems and teach us how to live. We can easily reach out to the wisdom of any era through books. Socrates, Zeno, Pythagoras, Democritus, and Aristotle, these great sages would never say, "Come back later, I'm busy now." On the contrary, they make those who visit them happier than when they arrived, and they guide us on how to spend our lives until the very end. They leave us with the time they spent as a precious gift. If you consider these great philosophers as your friends and mentors and lead your life as the master of your own destiny, you will enjoy a fantastic old age. However, those who forget the past, ignore the present, and fear the future will live a short and anxious life. Sadly, they will realize, when facing death, that they have spent a lifetime in meaningless busyness. In essence, Seneca is suggesting that you should visit the great philosophers through books. Make them your mentors, in a sense. Also, human deaths don't come when you're mentally prepared for them. They can come at any moment. At that point, it's too late to regret having wasted your time unwisely. So, Seneca proposes that while engaging in deep conversations with these great philosophers, you should consider how you want to live and how you want to meet your end. Take the time to think deeply about it. This aligns with Schopenhauer's work on reading, where he advises choosing good books. He particularly praises the classics of Greece and Rome, considering them all valuable. Now, in this context, Seneca suggests to Paulinus, who had been responsible for grain management, that he should retire. Paulinus, you have endured more than enough storms. Isn't it time to seek a safe harbor? You possess virtuous qualities that everyone recognizes. So, why not use those virtues for yourself instead of your job? I am not advocating for indolence or a life of boredom. I'm not writing this letter to persuade you to take a break. It's not about resting from your duties. Rather, it's about living peacefully and freely outside the pressures of your work. I want you to realize that by doing so, you may discover something even more significant than what you have been diligently pursuing so far. I know how diligently and conscientiously you have worked in your role. But trust me, your current position may not guarantee your life. Your exceptional abilities and vitality could be better applied elsewhere. You didn't spend years studying philosophy just to manage vast amounts of grain, did you? No, that's not why you pursued it. You must have had more noble aspirations. A more important task awaits you. Therefore, Paulinus, now is the time to embark on this journey while the warm blood flows within you. Seneca wrote this letter when he was 61 years old, and he passed away at the age of 64. It might seem like he retired too early, but it wasn't due to his lifespan. He met an untimely death because Emperor Nero ordered him to commit suicide. This unfortunate incident stemmed from a failed conspiracy by individuals who couldn't bear Nero's tyranny. Unfortunately, one of the conspirators implicated Seneca, leading Nero to suspect him. Nero sent soldiers to Seneca's home, and despite the suddenness of the situation, Seneca remained calm upon seeing armed soldiers. Seneca asked the military commander to give him time to write his will for those left behind. However, he stated that there was no option for you other than choosing death for yourself, rejecting Seneca's request. In response, Seneca began to speak with a calm expression, looking at the friends and disciples who surrounded him. I wanted to leave words of gratitude for all of you, but it seems that time has come to an end. So, I will leave you with the most beautiful thing I have within me right now, which is the image of me living like this. Seneca faced death, which suddenly appeared before him, without displaying any fear. In fact, he cared for and encouraged his friends who were silently lamenting and his disciples trembling with fear. Why are you all crying? Maintain your composure. Where has the philosophy we've learned together gone? Haven't we trained our minds for years to prepare for such unforeseen disasters? Nero drove even his own mother and his wife to their deaths. As an educator, what reason is there for me not to join them? With these words, Seneca finally embarked on his journey into the world of death, and the scene was said to be extremely dramatic. He tried to bleed himself by cutting the major veins in places like his wrists and ankles using a knife. However, Due to his old age and delicate constitution, he did not bleed enough to cause death. In great pain, he then requested a friend who was a physician to bring him poison. This poison was known as hemlock and is believed to cause respiratory distress and nerve paralysis when ingested in large quantities. Socrates had also chosen this method to end his life. Seneca, like Socrates, drank from the poison cup, but the poison did not take effect. Even cutting his arteries and consuming poison had fate, rejecting Seneca's death. However, he didn't let such things deter him. If the poison didn't work, he demanded boiling water be prepared, and he finally drew his last breath after immersing himself in it. This shocking final scene is seen as a symbol of Seneca's way of life and his philosophy. Starting from the 17th century, many European painters have depicted his death in their works. One of these paintings is the one mentioned at the beginning, titled The Death of Seneca by the brilliant Baroque artist Peter Paul Rubens. How was it? Even if you were initially puzzled by what you saw, I hope this provides some clarity about the story. 30 years after his death, the Roman Empire finally emerged from a period of turmoil and entered an era of peace and prosperity known as the Nerva-Antonine dynasty. It was during this time that the slave philosopher Epictetus made his appearance. If you watched this video and developed an interest in Seneca, I encourage you to explore his works. Time spent with great philosophers can be an invaluable treasure. If you found it interesting or informative, I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and a comment. And please subscribe my channel, it makes me happy and gives me energy to make next video. Thank you for watching.